So if we have international unity in implementing these resolutions, then we won't face the same problems again. You can witness this if you look at the world at the moment, where Iran and North Korea both face unity from the 5 nuclear powers, and as a result have had to step down their nuclear programs. North Korea has recently agreed to close down its nuclear reactors within 60 days. Iran is facing increasing internal dissent over the issue as financial hardships mount. Next, I believe there's an idea that perhaps a blanket ban in the region would be unfair because some nations are stable and don't deserve to be branded or tarred with the same brush as the rest. And I agree, it is unfortunate, but the problem is that it's not possible to isolate nuclear technology to the nations that we deem suitable. If taking Pakistan as an example, after the development of Pakistan's nuclear technology, one of the leading scientists, Dr. Abdul Khan, then went on to sell nuclear technology to many other nations, notably Libya, North Korea and Iran. Libya only stopped developing once the US intercepted shipments of nuclear, I think it was centrifuges, from Pakistan in 2003. We know what happened to North Korea, and Iran seems to go down a similar path. And it just goes to show that apparently the Pakistan government was unaware of these actions by the scientists, but it goes to show that unscrupulous individuals can and will sell the technology on for their own means. And it is plausible that it would fall into the hands of terrorist groups. And bearing in mind that in the Middle East, Israel especially sees constant suicide bombings, the idea of mixing suicide bombing with a dirty bomb, it doesn't bear countenance. There's also the idea that somehow oil is related to poverty. I don't really see how that applies when some of the oil nations are incredibly rich and have passed on the wealth to their citizens. In the UAE, for example, there are several states with a very high standard of living. Look at Dubai, it's very well developed. Abu Dhabi is following a similar path. I think the idea is not really that it's to do with oil decomposition. They're far more deep-rooted. They're associated with perhaps the fact that the states in the Middle East are largely autocratic or dictatorial. And in an autocratic system, there is no incentive for the ruler to pass on wealth to the people because it doesn't benefit them. It's not like...
Yeah, I believe the point we're trying to make is that the existence of oil in the Middle East is what's causing the sustaining of the autocratic regimes, and that if we delimit nuclear technology as an option, you are thus cutting off an alternative energy source which could potentially break the Middle East out of the vicious cycle connecting oil with tyranny.
It's a good point, but bear in mind that their revenues don't come from them using the oil to burn. They don't get money by using it all for energy. They get money by selling oil to other countries. So even if they go nuclear, they'll have even more oil revenue. It doesn't hold up. If they suddenly say, oh great, we don't need to burn our oil anymore. America, do you want it? Yes, great, we'll take it. They'll get far more money, and surely it will just provide greater funds to sustain dictatorship if that is what happens. Also, the idea that nuclear as well would somehow generate wealth. If the Middle East developed nuclear technology and then produced nuclear weapons, which it could easily do because reactors can be optimised for both energy production and weapons-grade plutonium production, that will just increase instability in the region. And if you've got instability, trade falls. If trade falls, revenue falls. So if anything, it will just increase the poverty in the Middle East. I really suggest an alternative to our resolution in the form of negotiation. The idea that talking and finger wagging is going to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. We tried that about 50, 60 years ago with Germany and it didn't work. We said, oh, please don't invade, we'll be very cross if you do invade. They said, oh, well, sorry, we'll take Czechoslovakia anyway, we don't care. And we got into World War II. And when nuclear weapons were involved, that's an even more dangerous policy because we keep saying to Iran, we'd really rather you didn't have nuclear weapons. They'll say, oh well, and then before we know it, they'll have them, and then we'll be powerless to stop them. So I don't think that negotiation without teeth is really a policy we can follow. The question about non-state actors, how they be affected by this ban, and obviously superficially it seems that they wouldn't because they're not going to sign it, they don't care about international law, that's why they're terrorists. But unlike biological or chemical weapons, you can't develop nuclear technology in your shed, in your garden. You have to have a big reactor. And that's the sort of thing that satellites can easily see, and it's not the sort of thing that terrorist groups can manage on their own because they like to move. They would need state support, whether implicit or explicit. They would need access to nuclear materials, which they can't do up by themselves. And that is how this would affect them. because the states would agree not to develop it, thereby cutting off the access to terrorist groups. There's also apparent extremism is linked to oil. There's extremism in countries that don't have oil, Indonesia for example, so the correlation doesn't really hold. I noticed an objection to the idea that Israel should have its nuclear weapons removed because without them it can't defend itself. Israel's actually defended itself very well in the past 1948, 1967.
Point of question. Sure. Are you aware of the Israeli threats to nuclear capitals in the 1973 war?
Yeah, that's it. If they hadn't had nuclear weapons, they wouldn't be able to do that. That's
the point is that...
as a deterrent.
Okay.
But the way that Israel won these wars against 5 Arab states at a time, despite having a much smaller population, was just through conventional techniques. When Egypt took the Sinai region, Israel pushed them out. No nuclear weapons needed. They're very capable of doing that. But if we accept that maybe they do need them because they face threats from surrounding Arab nations, then what's going to happen when we give those surrounding Arab nations nuclear weapons? Are they suddenly not going to be aggressive towards Israel anymore? I don't think so. I think there will be. And as we said, mutually assured destruction just doesn't hold in a region where martyrdom is held to be admirable by certain groups. In a region where religious tensions remove the rationality that was present in the Cold War. So it would be extremely unwise and would probably lead to greater violence if we did allow the spread of nuclear weapons in that area. Finally, a point of a statistical point, if you will. The Freedom Pulse Index apparently shows a correlation between extremism and high oil prices. I don't think the high oil prices really cause extremism. I don't think you'll say, it's not like here when the price of petrol goes up, everyone's about angry queues at the pumps, stuff like that. It's probably more the case that extremism causes high oil prices. When terrorists took control of oil supplies in Nigeria, oil prices went up. When there's terrorism in the Middle East, the Iraq War, something like that, oil prices go up. It's not a case that high oil prices cause extremism. Extremism causes high oil prices. Okay. I think the final point I need to address would be the sustainability, the expense, environmental effects of nuclear power. Contrary to common wisdom, nuclear power is actually very expensive. The operating costs are very low. The operating pollution is very low. But if you account for all costs, construction, research and development, uranium mining, decommissioning of the nuclear plants and storage of nuclear waste, nuclear power is actually the most expensive conventional form of electricity. In Britain, for example, it's been extremely expensive. British nuclear fuels ran a £2.3 billion loss in 2002, and British electricity has had to be bailed out by the government. Basically, nuclear power is not sustainable without government subsidy, without government support. And given that many states in the Middle East are quite poor compared to the West, I don't think it's really going to be a sustainable energy source for them. Whilst it may produce less carbon dioxide, there is a question of storage. And although there are methods which allow, I believe you mix it with molten glass or with ceramics, which provide very safe storage, it's still quite dangerous. There's still a chance of it mixing with water supplies. There's a chance it might not be put in a particularly safe location and the radiation will spread. It's one of those, for instance, that the areas around nuclear power plants in Britain and America experience higher rates of certain cancer like leukemia than other areas. There's a village in Somerset near a nuclear plant which experiences 6 times the national level of leukemia. I think that's pretty much everything I need to cover, unless you've got any questions. You okay?